Okay, today we are diving deep into, well, what's arguably one of the most talked about literary moves this year, Percival Everett's novel, James.
Hmm.
And this isn't just, a retelling. It feels more like a complete reconstruction of Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but told entirely from Jim's perspective.
It's a huge task, really. I mean,
Mm.
tackling a book like Huck Finn, so foundational, so canonical and American, like, you need someone who really gets satire, history, narrative.
Someone like Everett.
Exactly. The author of Erasure, which you probably know became the film American Fiction, he's just known for being incredibly skilled across so many different genres. A real master.
So our mission here really is to try and understand the huge shift this change in perspective creates. We want to explain the why, like why did Everett feel compelled to do this now?
Yeah, the motivation.
And look at the really striking, almost surgical ways he changes the narrative, the techniques he uses.
Maybe most importantly.
Right, analyze how the stakes, which are just vastly different for James, completely reshape the story structure we thought we knew so well.
You really can't start talking about James without first acknowledging the very long and complicated history of Huckleberry Finn itself.
Oh, absolutely. That debate has been raging forever, hasn't it? On
Yeah.
one side, you've got this really strong argument to just, discard the book
Yeah.
because of the language.
The N-word, specifically. It's used so much, and it's deeply offensive. It makes reading it today a real struggle with that historical violence.
It does, but then there's the other side of the
The
argument.
counter-argument, yeah. Which is that Twain, well, for a white guy writing in Missouri back then, late 19th century, he actually created a pretty complex character in Jim.
Remarkably sympathetic, some would say.
Right, and that Jim's humanity is kind of what drives Huck's own moral growth in the book.
It's a tough line to walk, but what's fascinating here is who Everett approaches Twain. He doesn't seem to treat him like an enemy, someone to just cancel out. He actually seems to admire him.
Oh, he definitely does. You can see it. He talks about Twain's influence on him, saying, his humor and humanity affected me long before I became a writer.
And that great line in the acknowledgments.
Yeah, about meeting him. Heaven for the climate, hell for my long-awaited lunch with Mark Twain. It's brilliant. Shows real respect, I think.
That humor definitely lands. But, the very fact that he rewrote the book, that itself implies a pretty significant critique of the original's limits, doesn't it?
It has to, right? By taking over the story, Everett is basically saying, look, Twain's version, maybe it was sympathetic for its time, but it just didn't let Jim be seen as a full, complex, intellectually brilliant human being.
He was still seen through Huck's eyes.
Exactly. Through that, adolescent white perspective, Everett seems to feel he needed to just shatter that filter.
Which brings us to what I think is maybe the most radical and structurally key idea in James. How does Everett show us right away that this James is not the Jim from the original, not the simplified character speaking only in dialect?
Well, he just flits the whole language expectation on its head.
Yeah.
Right from the start, we learn that James, and actually many of the other enslaved people, speak perfect standard English.
Often better English than the white characters they meet.
Often, yes.
Hmm.
And the dialect they use when they're around white people, that's a performance. It's learned, calculated.
A performance that's so vital for survival that they actually have to practice it. Like, they take lessons on how to speak in that simple, almost broken way that white people expect.
It's just, it lays bare the trauma, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Slavery wasn't just about physical chains. It was about crushing people intellectually, cognitively. Imagine the mental effort, the constant strain of maintaining two separate ways of speaking.
One of which you have to deliberately make sound less intelligent.
It's this exhausting, ongoing act of deception just to stay alive.
And the book shows this so clearly with that anecdote about James teaching the kids in Hannibal how to translate their real thoughts into that safe speech.
Yeah, he gives them this urgent scenario. Mrs. Holliday's kitchen is on fire, her back is turned. You have to warn her quick, but in a way she'll accept from you.
And the logical thing, the direct warning, is just fire. Fire. But no, that's almost right, but not quite. It's too direct. Too much agency shown.
Exactly. And so little Rachel, she's only 5, but she gets it. She knows the survival code. She delivers the perfect response. Lordy miss him. Looky there.
That's the performance they have to master. This sort of emotional outburst, the subservient phrasing, it lets the white person step in and take control.
And Lizzie, another character, she explains why that's perfect. She says, because we must let the whites be the ones who name the trouble. Think about that.
Wow, you give up your power to even define reality just to survive it.
And this deception runs deep. The stakes are incredibly high. James becomes so good at this code switching, so deft, that on the rare occasions he has to show his real fluency, maybe to an ally or sometimes by accident to a white person, they're just floored, completely shocked.
They just can't process it.
Can't conceive that this level of intelligence exists under the surface they thought they understood. It just shatters their whole worldview.
So structurally speaking, James kind of follows the original river trip at the start, right?
Hmm.
But because we're locked inside James's head, his first-person view, things really diverge when he and Huck get separated.
Yeah, and this is where Everett really takes the reins. In Huck Finn, when they're apart, Jim basically just disappears from the story for stretches.
He's off stage.
Right, he only exists when Huck sees him. But in James, since it's James's story, Huck vanishes for a long time. And this gives Everett the space to create these entirely new and often really harrowing adventures just for James.
And some of these new parts, they still have that dark, satirical edge like Twain, but the danger feels so much more immediate, right? That constant threat of the antebellum South is always there for James.
Always. And probably the most, well, mind-bending example is that sequence you mentioned earlier where James has to pretend he's a white man
Who is pretending to be a black man.
so he can sing tenor in a minstrel show.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second because it's such a brilliant meta moment. James, the actual black man who escaped slavery, is forced into the identity of a white actor
Who is then putting on blackface.
to perform this deeply racist caricature for a white audience.
It's like satire eating itself. James is performing this grotesque lie layered on another lie. But the real target of the satire, Everett's critique, it feels like it's aimed squarely at the white audience watching.
They're laughing at this distorted image, filtered through a white caricature.
Completely oblivious that the actual man right in front of them is infinitely more complex and intelligent than they could ever imagine. It says so much about the white gaze, about how racist tropes were consumed.
So it keeps some of that structural comedy, but the stakes? Oh
Yes.
man, the stakes are just worlds apart. Which is why James can never really have that same, sometimes, air of lighthearted absurdity that you find in parts of Huckleberry Finn.
That's the absolute core of the difference, isn't it? You, as the reader, you always have to remember what failure means. If Huck gets caught doing something foolish,
He gets a talking to, maybe sent back home to Hannibal where he doesn't want to be. It's annoying for him.
inconvenient, right. But if James gets captured, that's not inconvenience.
No.
That is torture. That is brutal violence. That is almost certain death. And that massive gap between their potential consequences, that's the whole reason this novel feels so necessary.
And because those consequences are so different, the original ending just had to go.
It really did. I mean, literary critics, even ones who love Huck Finn, have argued for years that Twain's ending, where Tom Sawyer comes back and cooks up that ridiculous, long, pointless plan to free Jim.
Who, by the way, was already legally free at that point.
Exactly. It just betrays Jim's character. It reduces the moral seriousness of everything that came before.
Turns him back into a prop, almost.
Precisely. So Everett, he clearly understands that betrayal. He cuts it completely. His ending is intense. Action-packed people have compared it to the energy of something like Django Unchained.
Yeah, I heard that comparison.
It might feel a bit rushed compared to the slower pace of the journey itself, maybe, but it gives James the kind of active resolution, the agency, that his character absolutely earned and demanded. And if we think about James's inner world for a moment, the novel paints such a devastating picture of the emotional toll of slavery. What's really anguishing is seeing how the system messes with people's minds, not just their bodies.
That moral damage comes through so clearly. The way slavery could sometimes almost convince people that their situation wasn't that bad, maybe.
Or that resistance was futile, yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads to these moments of betrayal, people turning against James or others trying to escape, acts that just haunt him.
It's like the ultimate cost of trying to survive, turning on your own community.
It really makes you think about moral choices under extreme pressure, doesn't it?
Right.
But even with all that, the constant need to perform, the threats from outside and sometimes inside, James never wavers in knowing who he is.
He seems absolutely certain of his own value, his own humanity, throughout.
He really does. And his main driving force, it isn't about getting revenge. It's about getting his family back.
Retrieval, yeah. You see that determination in his meticulous planning, his complex schemes to free his wife and daughter. That goal is like his North Star.
And that focus, that self-determination, it leads us straight to the most powerful transformation in the whole book, I think. The shift from just Jim
That simple, almost generic name.
Obviously used almost like property, right?
Huh.
To the full assertion of James.
What does that change, just adding 2 letters, really signify in that context of bondage and freedom?
Oh, it signifies everything. In the tradition of slave narratives, choosing or reclaiming your name is a fundamental act of defining yourself,
Mm.
of taking ownership of your identity,
Slaves were named by their owners, stripped of family names.
given simple, often childish names.
Yeah.
So by the end of this novel, the protagonist has fully claimed his personhood. And there's that final, really clear moment. A white man asks him his last name,
And he replies,
just James. It's just this powerful final statement of self-worth. He doesn't need an owner's name, doesn't need an inherited name in that moment. His chosen name, his full first name, stands on its own. It's an identity he built himself through his own intellect and actions.
So when we wrap up this deep dive into James, what's the big takeaway for you? For me, it's seeing this character, once secondary and often silent, transformed into someone so complex, so intelligent, multilingual, and driven by such deep morality.
Yeah,
And the novel just lays bare that incredible, constant, cognitive, emotional, of having to perform a lesser self just to survive.
absolutely. And maybe building on that whole language idea,
Mm.
here's something maybe to think about after you've read it. Consider the sheer mental weight, the nonstop effort of knowing how to speak standard English fluently, but having to consciously translate every complex thought into a simplified, expected dialect every single day.
Just to stay safe.
It's not just about code switching. It's almost like weaponizing perceived ignorance for protection. What does that immense, hidden mental work tell us about what freedom really means, what identity really means? Not just back then, but maybe even now, In any situation where people feel forced to perform a diminished version of themselves to fit in or appease those in power.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other brilliant hidden stories might be lurking just beneath the surface of the classic text we thought we knew inside out? Definitely something to explore.